Hello everyone, welcome to Rasayan Academy. So guys, this is a very important video and we are going to discuss some very important topics today. Yes, your June 2020 examination has happened. All right, and yes, we have seen some. I have taken some very important questions from the paper, and we are going to discuss them. So, I have taken 37 questions which I remember. All right, and also we will be discussing them in detail, right? All the reaction mechanism and reasons in detail. Along with that, guys, after discussing these many questions, we will also see what is the feedback that I have got from students about this 2020 examinations. Okay, that what you think was difficult and so on. So overall students review on examination, which is going to help us understand in predicting, or let's say in understanding what could be the cutoff, right? And along with that, guys, June 2021 prediction. So June 2021 prediction based on what type of questions were asked this time and what could be asked next time. Okay, yes, and also expectations for your Tamil Nadu paper since the paper was postponed. So what can we expect in this paper? I think that this is what is very important for us to understand right now and prepare accordingly. Then what we learn from the CSI NET 2020 examination. So this has always got to be there in your diary wherever you are noting down your preparation. This point has always got to be there. Okay, so we are going to discuss these major important points about this exam. Let's quickly begin. So guys, let's start with our first question, CSI NET 2020 paper discussion. So memory based questions, first number is on the Hammett equation. Alright, so I have made you practice exactly the same question a lot of times and very many other questions as well based on the Hammett equation. So I was really happy to see this question and I hope that you were too. So rho value for benzoic acid dissociation. Now, what is Hammett equation? I have already taught you on Unacademy in the free classes. Okay, so if you want, I can paste the link of free classes on Hammett equation on Unacademy. You just have to log in and watch. Okay. Alright, so rho value for benzoic acid dissociation. Now, rho value, we have understood this. When the rho value is positive, you know that the transition state of any reaction that is becoming more electron rich in nature, right? So the transition state becomes electron rich. Alright, similarly, if the rho value becomes negative, then the transition state becomes electron deficient. Okay, so what does that mean? That means if we are considering the dissociation of benzoic acid, we see the formation of carboxylate ion and H+. So the transition state, which is the formation of a carbanion, has increased electron density. So we would say that the rho value is positive. Okay. Alright, but what is the value for all of these molecules? What is the difference? All the molecules are carboxylic acid, but just one of them is benzoic acid. Okay, so there is a huge effect on the dissociation of benzoic acid, then the value is positive, but it is a greater positive value. I don't exactly remember the value, neither you have to remember. It is a higher positive value as compared to these. So for example, if we say A, B and C. So the value for benzoic acid dissociation, first of all, A is going to have the highest value, then goes B and then goes C. Alright, we are talking about the positive value, right? So why is this so? First of all, because if you consider simple acid, if you simply consider unsubstituted benzoic acid, then in the benzoic acid, what happens is resonance happens from the benzene ring and the benzene ring becomes electron deficient. But let's say if we are removing a proton from here, then what happens is a carboxylate anion generates. You know that already. Now this carboxylate anion, it is already very electron rich. It does not require more electrons from the benzene and hence there is a direct effect of carboxylate ion generation on the ring. The ring becomes more electron rich now. Okay, so that is the reason why A is very electron rich and has a higher positive value. Now if we just go on increasing the distance, if there is a carbon in between, if there is a carbon in between, then also the formation of carboxylate ion happens in all of these B and C also, just that the effect on the ring is less pronounced. Okay, and that is why with increasing distance the effect of carboxylate ion formation on the ring is less pronounced, and hence the value becomes less. Okay, so this is our order. A is greater than B greater than C for our rho value for benzoic acid dissociation. If you want, you can check out the Hammett equation video. Then we come on to stereochemistry topicity. So guys, stereochemistry has a lot of important topics, in which only this topicity and the conformational analysis came. Only 2 questions. I was expecting much more, right? And we had almost completed all the questions from this topic. Okay, so let's talk about this. Now here is a biphenyl system. If you understand, this is a biphenyl system, right? So the biphenyl system is definitely, the rings are not planar. Okay, they are not planar, and I hope that you have figured that out already. They are not planar. One of the ring is going to be, for example, this part is above the plane, and let's say this part is above the plane. Both of the rings are actually perpendicular to each other. Okay, both of the rings they are perpendicular to each other. So let's imagine that these two rings are perpendicular. Okay, let's imagine that I'm writing this one as bold line. So if these two rings are perpendicular, how do you find the topicity? I have taught you a lot of short tricks, guys. Both of these are ethyl group only, if you understand. For example, HA and HB, whatever it is, these are both methyl groups. So topicity, how you find it out? When you see C2 axis of exchange, when you see that both of these protons or any two groups are C2 axis exchangeable or rotatable, then you say these groups are homotopic groups. When it is sigma plane exchangeable, then you say that it is going to be enantiotopic. Then you say it is going to be enantiotopic. When you don't find any of these operations, then you say it is diastereotopic. Very, very simple. No need for replacement or anything. You don't need to have to replace the HA and HB with any other ligand. Directly you see if there is any operation like that. So if both of these rings are perpendicular to each other, you see that there is no sigma plane over here which can cut in between HA and HB. Alright, so it is on one of this carbon which is basically perpendicular to the other ring. So if you have to find a sigma plane, C2 is not possible at all. If you had to find a sigma plane which is cutting in between HA and HB, you need to understand that this ring also has to be bisected. If sorry, if there is OMe on both the sides, let's say, if it was OMe both the sides, then it could be bisected, but very cleverly it is only methyl written. There is no methoxy, and hence there is no sigma plane, no C2 axis, diastereotopic. Okay, diastereotopic. And if this was the condition, then it would be enantiotopic, but this is not so. So we just move on with the diastereotopic. Now, formation of enamines. Once again, a common question. This question we had just done one day before your examination in the Unacademy Plus classes. I'm really happy to see this. Exactly the same thing we did. So heterocyclic chemistry, we had understood that it could be asked. It is a very important topic and was not very greatly asked in December 2019. So ये आने ही वाला था, सबको पता था, ठीक है, and a very predictable question from the Claydon itself. Alright, so yes, what is the question? You are given a substituted aniline and you are given a ketone. Now, based on the enamine formation of ketone, you have two different products. How is that happening? In the presence of acid, you get the more substituted, always you get the more substituted enol or enamine. More substituted enol or enamine. You have the same concept of enol as in enamine also. In the presence of base, you have less substituted enamine formed like this. So in enamine or enolate, whatever you say, it is less substituted. Less substituted is the kinetic, okay, and the thermodynamic is the more substituted, isn't it? Thermodynamic is more stable like that. So how does our product proceed? Let's just draw this first and understand what is the enamine going to be. It is, for example, your pH double bond O like this, and nitrogen, let's say it is having a double bond first of all with this ketone. Okay, first of all we have just formed the imine like this. Alright, so we have just eliminated oxygen, formed the imine. Now further, the iminium ion is going to, in the presence of acid, it loses this proton. In the presence of acid, it loses this proton to give you N, and single bond there is NH and something like this. This is your enamine which forms. Okay, in the presence of base, what happens is you get something like this, NH, there's a single bond. I'm just writing the ethyl over here because now we know that the enamine forms on the left hand side like this, okay, on this side basically. Alright, so this is your enamine. Now the enamine is exactly working similar to enol. It just gives reaction in the same manner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 membered ring formed, and methyl groups on both the ends. That gives you this product. Similarly, this less substituted or kinetic enamine works like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 membered rings. So here you form the kinetic enamine, and here you form the thermodynamic enamine. So the question was like that: in your basic medium, in your acidic medium, what prevails? In acidic medium you have this major product which is going through the thermodynamic enamine, and in the basic medium you have this product which goes through the kinetic enamine. Alright, so this is how the reaction proceeds. Further, aldol, now there's another very simple question actually, just required you 4 minutes. Okay, so yes, the question is like this: you have cyclohexanone in the presence of base. In the presence of base, you know it will form enolate like this. Now what is the overall reaction? So see, this is your reactant and this was your product. So reactant and product was given, you just have to identify the sequence of reaction. Very easy question this was. So here it is: enolate has formed. Enolate is going to attack on the other carbonyl like this. The bond opens up, and it is going to form the alpha beta unsaturated ketone system. Okay, because the hydroxy group is going to leave along with this hydrogen. You know that I am directly forming the aldol product. Okay, aldol product after the elimination of water. Okay, so beta hydroxy ketone minus H2O gives you alpha beta unsaturated ketone. Now what happens next? Next you have one more molecule of the cyclohexanone. It can once again form the enolate, and then it can make the Michael addition. What is Michael addition, guys? It is the conjugate addition, nothing else. Conjugate addition, that is the Michael addition. Alright, so first of all, simple aldol reaction to generate alpha beta unsaturated ketone. Michael reaction is the attack of your enolate or whichever nucleophile on the fourth position, or conjugate addition basically. So after that you get this molecule. Alright, so after that you get this molecule like this. Further, now the next or the third step is once again aldol reaction, intramolecular aldol reaction, but this time the third ketone molecule which has added here is how the reaction is going to take place. So O minus from this side. So you can try out this thing, or you can try out one more thing, that is the attack of this negative charge on this carbonyl gives you a similar thing. Similarly, if you want to write negative charge over here and do the attack over here, that gives you exactly the same product. Okay, no difference at all. So you can create the enolate in this ring or this ring, it's the same thing. So here we are, and you get the OH. on this side, and on the other carbon there is a new bond formation. This is your major product. So aldol, Michael and aldol reaction, this is the sequence. Okay, next question was a very simple one. So I was expecting more difficult questions in spectroscopy, but we did not get that. Alright, so this organic spectroscopy question was a very easy question. And just by looking at the IR and mass, you don't even have to see the NMR. It is just there to confirm. Okay, so NMR value was just there to confirm your correct answer. So first let's move on with the IR spectroscopy value. First thing first guys, it is an ester. You confirm that this is an ester. Second thing, I have told you a lot of times that whenever you see an ester, always look for this thing, where is the conjugation. If the conjugation is on the oxygen side, this is going to be 1770 or 1760 like that. If the conjugation is on the carbonyl side, it is going to be 1720, and if there is no conjugation, then only it is going to be 1740. So ये है non conjugated, it is non conjugated ester. Okay, that makes you think about it. Okay, that this is a possible one. But in the question there was also another option which had a double bond very far away from this, not conjugated but still on this side. How do we confirm this, that this is your correct answer? We confirm it like this. The most common ester fragmentation that happens is in this manner. So you have a charged radical. See, always it is going to form the radical cation in the mass spectrum, in the molecular ion peak. So after you do the fragmentation of this neutral radical, this is neutral, it is not going to give you the peak, the charged particle gives you the peak. It is how do you calculate? CH3 CH2, just calculate like this: CH3 CH2 plus one more CH2 plus a carbon over here, so a carbon and an oxygen. So how much is for this? 15 plus 14 plus 14 plus 12 and plus oxygen के लिए 16. You will get 71. If you do the calculation, you will get 71. So this is exactly confirming the correct option. 1740 non-conjugated ester, mass spectrum 71, 100% base value, base peak it is. So this is your correct answer, 71. Okay. Now further, if we move onwards, there was a very simple question in section C, VSEPR structure. Now this was a simple question, but a lot of students got confused between BRF4 minus and BF4 minus. Okay, तो ये confusion कहाँ से हुआ? Because you have seen a lot of BF4 minus as well. So we have to be very attentive at this. Also, let's see what are the structures. Now guys, let's start with the easiest one, for which you are 100% sure. So you are 100% sure about the carbonate, right? So carbonate is going to be like this, O minus and O minus in this manner. So it is trigonal planar. Carbon has only 4 electrons. Alright, it is trigonal planar. Very well, you have confirmed. Now further, if you go with sulfide radical actually, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 electrons. 2 electrons required for a double bond, 1 electron required for O minus like this. Still you have a lone pair. So that requires 4 orbitals. If you require 4 orbital, it cannot be trigonal planar. It has to be trigonal pyramidal in shape. Alright, so trigonal pyramidal, trigonal planar. Let's talk about BRF4 minus. So this is going to be BR has 7 electrons but 1 electron extra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 electrons. So it just one electron for each bonding with fluoride. So it has 2 more electrons, electron pair actually. So you are going to have octahedral geometry because it requires 6 orbitals, and this is your square planar system. Very simple. So SO32 minus is trigonal pyramidal, CO32 minus trigonal planar, and BRF4 minus square planar. Okay. Then moving onwards to another very important and very easy question, that is, you have a base, for example you have sodium hydride or let's say any other base. Okay, so What is the base doing? Just very simple thing. In both of these cases, you don't have to think about anything else. In both of these cases, it is doing the deprotonation. And what does that get you? Deprotonation it is happening, or deprotonation के बाद में you get a negative charge. Now here the question is based on the thermodynamic or the kinetic addition, or basically your direct or the conjugate addition. So comparison is between nitrogen and sulfur. So you know that nitrogen is a hard base actually. So if the nitrogen is a hard base as compared to sulfur, the nitrogen we are going to do direct addition. It gives you 1 2 3 4 and 5 member ring like this. So I'm just drawing like this, a 5 member ring, NH. Okay, so this is CH2, sorry. That gives you a 5 member ring. Let's say the double bond is on this side. Okay, 1 2 3 4 and 5. Alright, 1 2 3 4 and 5. So on the fourth carbon you have a CH2. So this was your major product. And in the second case you sorry, okay, so just wrote the same thing. So in the second one you have a conjugate addition like this. Okay, because this is also giving you the same 5 member ring, a more stable possibility. 1 2 3 4 and 5. Yes, that gives you a stable alright, so this is CH2 and this is your ester over here. Okay, it is going to be like this. Your CH2 is where it has attacked. So the question is very simple, just a direct addition and conjugate addition. And you just have to look at the type of nucleophile. It is a hard nucleophile and a soft nucleophile, just that. Now guys, another very important question that I found out. So I see two questions were asked on chemical bonding, molecular orbital diagrams actually. So first of all, N2 plus cation radical molecular term symbol. Now molecular term symbols are very important, exactly similar your atomic term symbols, just that you have to draw the molecular orbital diagram. Now guys, these two questions were based on the exact same concept, that for your Z less than 14, matlab for your atomic number less than 14, you have a typical molecular orbital diagram. That is, your pi orbitals are going to be more stable than your sigma orbital, and then it is the pi star and the sigma star in the usual pattern. So you have 1 2 and 3, 1 2 and 3 like this. So this is your pi orbital, sigma bonding pi, and this is sigma orbital, right? So what do we get? Nitrogen has 2s2 2p3. So we are just involving the 2p3 electrons in the bonding like this, so that 3 electrons but there is a positive charge, so we will consider just 5 electron from these two nitrogens. So 1 2 3 1 and 2 like this. So 5 electrons, 1 2 3 4 and 5. So where is this electron seated? The last one electron is seated into your sigma orbital. For that sigma, delta value is equals to 0, which means you have the sigma term. Okay, you have the sigma term, right? And what is the spin multiplicity? 2s plus 1, that is once again 1 unpaired electron, so it is going to be 2. So just like your atomic term symbol, molecular term symbol is written like this: 2s plus 1, the delta, which is just like L, S, P, D, F, so it is sigma, pi, delta and phi over here. And then you have G or U, that is the Jared or the unjared, whether there is symmetry or unsymmetry like that. Okay, so your orbital that you are having, in which the molecule, or let's say the last electron resides, that is the sigma orbital. Sigma bonding orbital is like this. It is completely symmetrical, hence we are using G, and positive because it is symmetrical, right? So you have 2s plus 1, that goes for 2. Then you have delta value 0, which goes for sigma. Then you have G because it is a Jared and a positive. So this is your answer. If you have done the opposite, if you have done it like this, that sigma is below and then there is pi, that is a mistake. Okay. Now, another question on the exact same concept, that is your energy. Okay, so there was a question that I don't remember where was the greater than or less than sign, but what is the energy of the 2 sigma g and 1 pi u of the C2, B2 and O2, right? So you see again, for Z less than 14 you have the pi orbitals more stable than the sigma orbitals. So your 2 sigma g. Why is this 2 sigma g? Where is the 1 sigma g? That goes in the, from the 1s bonding. Okay, this is 2s bonding. Okay, all right. Sorry, it is from the 2p bonding. That comes from the 2s bonding. Okay, so this is 2 sigma g and it is going to be higher in energy as compared to the 1 pi u over here. Once again, that happens for the Z value less than 14. So boron and carbon has a atomic number of 6 and C2 will be 12. So it is less than 14. You have the same thing for boron and carbon. For the oxygen, you have 16. Okay, so you have the mass 16, so hence what you do is you have the number of electrons totally. So here the system is a little bit different. You have the sigma getting more stable as compared to the pi, so you omit this option. So your 2 sigma g is greater than 1 pi u for your C2 and B2. Okay, this is what you get. Now another question number 10 actually. Term symbol of chromium 3 plus D3 electronic configuration in the ground state is. So this was another very good question. Easy, very easy but good. See, what you have done is you have done this term symbol thing for a lot of example. For your D3 electronic configuration, you just calculate first of all the L value, which is coming out to be 3, and if it is 3 it is the F term. So for L is equals to 0 you have the S term, for L is equals to 1 P term, for L is equals to 2 you have the D term, for L is equals to 3 you have the F term, and so on, right? So the thing is, you got the F term very well, and then you check the 2s plus 1 value, that is equals to 4 because you have 3 unpaired electron, and along with that you also check the S value, that is 3 by 2. Now it is very easy. You got the 4, that is the 2s plus 1 value is 4, then you got the L value which is giving you the F term. But what about the J value? So J is equals to L plus S for electronic configuration greater than half filled. Okay, and for electronic configuration less than half filled it is L minus S, and for electronic configuration is equal to half filled then you have the J is equals to S. Alright, so basically here what do we have, guys? It is going to be, it is D3, right? So we have D10 usually when it is completely filled. It is D5 when it is half filled. Alright, so if it is D5 the J value is equals to S. If it is less than half filled we go with the L minus S. So there will be L minus S over here. L value is 3, S value is 3 by 2. So you just get J is equals to 3 minus 3 by 2. Alright, that gives you 3 by 2 once again. So your answer is 4F 3 by 2. Okay, right. So we move onwards to another question that was from asymmetric synthesis. So guys, it was a very simple question. I was expecting a much more difficult question from asymmetric synthesis, but this time organic was much doable and the inorganic was less doable. Alright. So yes, this is our asymmetric synthesis. Let's talk about this first and then we'll go on to what was easy and tough. Yes, so you have LDA, you have a base. Base is going to very similarly take up a proton because this was the only enolizable proton. The other side you had the nitrogen. Okay, so the nitrogen ring was like this. So just one position for enolization. If you get the enolate in this manner, if you get the enolate in this manner like this. Now because of this group which was present above, the bulky phenyl group is present above, and hence you see that your phenyl this benzyl position is being attacked like this, and that happens from below the plane. So this was a very obvious answer. I hope that you have done this. Okay, very simple question. Let's move on to question number 12. So the number of transitions in both of these complexes, very simple, because chromium here is octahedral, D3 system. Alright, and chromium once again over here is octahedral and D3 system only. You see that it is ethylene diamine, it is a bidentate ligand, so it is 3, which means 3 into 2, it is actually hexa, or let's say octahedral complex. Here also it is bidentate, so octahedral complex, 4 plus 6, 6 coordination number in both the cases. Alright, so you have D3 electronic configuration over here, and in both the cases you get D3. Now if you see the orbital diagram of D3 octahedral, D8 octahedral, you would know that there are 3 transitions, right? So it is a direct question from the orbital diagram. You have the F term, and basically you have the 4F term over here and the 4P term like this. So in the D3 and D8 octahedral, you have something like this. You have the A2G term, then there is T2G term, and then there is T1P term and 1,4 from the 4P. Alright, so that is one again, T1P, T1G from the P, and this is T1G from the F. So you have 1, 2 and 3 transitions. Okay, I hope that you understood this. Alright, the diagrams are overlapping, but this is a very simple question from the Orgel diagram. So both are 3 and 3 transitions, same system. Okay, very well. Let's move onwards to question number 13. Now guys, in question number 13, you see this, there is a nitrogen. So first of all, in the presence of CuCl, it was given. So in the presence of CuCl, you see that whenever you have a alpha diazoketone, whenever you see alpha position diazoketone or aldehyde or ester, whatever it is. Okay, so this is ester, it is just OET. Right, it is the OET, right, directly attached over here. So in the presence of copper, rhodium, ruthenium, you are going to get the metal carbene. So the metal carbene is like this. It is actually a carbenoid, but it behaves as a singlet carbene. Behaves as a singlet carbene. Okay, so hence what is this singlet carbene going to do? It is going to bond. It is going to bond with this system. Now it is a very important question guys, that you are actually having the oxygen attack over the carbon so that a carbon gets a negative charge. This is how it goes. Okay, so the carbon gets a negative charge like this, and oxygen gets a positive charge. So it is just this that you have to understand. Okay, so carbenes are neutral when they are attacked by a nucleophilic, let's say the lone pairs are attacking. Okay, so when they are attacked by a nucleophile, they'll get a negative charge. If they're attacked by electrophile, they'll get a positive charge. So this is what you generate. This is your 1,3 dipolar system now. It is your 1,3 dipole now. And after that, what is the regioselectivity of attack? It has to be like this, because this carbon is electron deficient. It has to be in this manner and not the other way around. And that gives you a product which is like this. That gives you a product which is like this. Okay, and not both the pH. There was one more option in which both the pH were on the same side. No. This is your correct regioselectivity for this answer. ये हो गया. Alright, so we move onwards to another good question. That is IR value of these ketones are. So basically we can, even if we don't remember the value, if you remember the value, well and good. If you don't remember the value, based on the S character, you can directly understand that their smaller the ring size. Okay, so if we understand this based on the 6-membered ring, 5-membered ring, why does the value increase for this ketone system? Okay, sorry, so this happens because the size decreases for the ring and there is a greater S character in the ketone system. So if there is a greater S character, the stretching frequency is going to increase. Okay, so for the increasing S character, so if we go along this line and we see a 6-membered ring has less than the 5-member ring, and so on. Then comes the 3-member ring, then comes the 2-member ring. We don't have a 2-member ring, so it is the ketene system that you have. Alright, and then there is our ketone, which is going to have a very large value. Alright, so C is going to have the highest, or the least value actually. A is going to be in between B and C. Yes, is it correct? Right. Least S character over here, so least value. Highest S character for the or basically the double bond. Okay, here, and then for the 3-member ring like this. So this is your correct answer. Alright, so it is explained based on the S character in the double bond. So smaller is the size of the ring, increasing S character. Okay. Then you have another question which we have done several times in class, this one. So what did I tell you guys, that if you have this possibility that one proton has to be removed either from here or from here, so one of the proton has to be removed, so it can do the ortholithiation both the sides. It is a question of ortholithiation. But why does it specifically, why does your butyl lithium specifically take away this proton and not this proton? All right, so that the reason is, if you are having, first of all, there is less steric hindrance on this side. First of all, there is less steric hindrance, even if your oxygen wants to direct the lithiation over here, less steric hindrance as compared to this side. Second thing is, if you are getting a negative charge on this carbon, there would be repulsion with the lone pair of nitrogen. So that does not happen. So this carbanion does not form. So hence your ortholithiation happens on the upper, or let's say on the 4th carbon. Okay, and then what is the second step? Second step is, you have a negative charge on this carbon, it attacks over iodine. Yes, it does not attack over the carbon, and this is how you are going to get this product, and along with that you are getting the alkene, CH2 double bond CH2 and I minus. So these are your byproducts of this reaction. So we have done this several times, and a very easy question. Okay, so now moving onwards. Next question is number 16. So guys, this was another very good question from the inorganic. Number of proton NMR peak at 30 and minus 80 degrees centigrade. Alright, so I don't remember all of the options, but I just remember the correct option. That is, there was an option for 2 peak and 1 peak like this. Okay, so this is what I remember. Number of proton NMR peak. So if you count the electron, Cp2 and FeCO whole twice. If you just count the electrons over here, it is 8 plus 4. 8 plus 4 means it is giving you 12 electrons. Now you just need 6 more electrons to make it 18 electron system, isn't it? How are 2 Cp rings going to give you 6 electron? Only one possibility. One of them is eta 1, the other one is eta 5. Then only it can give you totally 6 electrons. So we understand this from here, and yes, this is how we show the bonding of both the rings. Okay, and then there are going to be 2 carbonyls, let's say for example like this. Now you are being asked for the proton NMR, not for the carbonyl. So there are how many types of protons? Let's see how many types of protons. Okay, and there are 5 protons over here in the Cp, which are going to be all same. Same 5 protons. Okay, so yes, here we are at your 30 degrees centigrade, which is basically considered room temperature, at which temperature the system can get enough energy to do the ring whizzing, or let's say the eta can change also, right? Which means that it's not necessary that the carbon is going to be bound, the iron is going to be bound with the exact same carbon. The double bonds can change, and the position of this carbon also. Okay, so hence you get 2 peaks. What are you getting the 2 peaks for? One peak for this Cp, the other peak for these protons. They are going to resonate at a different frequency. Alright, so you get 2 peak 1:1 ratio because both of these are 5 protons. Okay, the value is not same because of the difference in bonding, but at 30 degrees centigrade because the carbons can change, or let's say because of fluctuality, all of these protons will be same. Okay, then when you are decreasing the temperature minus 80 degrees centigrade, then what happens is everything is frozen. You don't have any flipping or anything. Alright, everything is frozen. Even if everything is frozen, you see that the lower CP that you have, it is eta 5, completely uniformity over here. So all the protons, all 5 protons are still the same, but the upper ones that you see, from where the carbon is connected, this is one different type of proton. Let's say it is HA. Then you have HB, HC. Alright, so you have HB and HC over here as well. So what is the ratio now? Uh, you have 5 for this, you have 2 for this, you have another 2 for these proton, and then you have 1. So you have 5 is to 2 is to 2 is to 1. Alright, for this system. So our answer is 2 peaks, 1 is to 1 is 1 is to 1 for the 30 degree centigrade, and 4 peak at 5 is to 2 is to 1 for this system. Alright, so hopefully this is clear to all of you. This is our correct answer. Moving onwards, so guys, this was a lovely question that you had. Why? Because very nicely I have given you the explanation of Nazarov cyclization, and I told you that it is a 4n pi electron cyclization. In the presence of heat, it is going to be conrotatory. Alright, and also I have told you that many a times we are not able to understand whether it is conrotatory or disrotatory, because most of the times you get the double bond over here, and that makes that means that there is no proton over here, right? But in this question, if you are able to understand what is the stereochemistry of these hydrogens, it is always going to be trans. Maximum times it is going to be trans, because the rotation is conrotatory, right? So let's understand what is happening. So if I say that the bond is moving in this manner, this step exactly is the cyclization, electrocyclization that you have. This exact step is the electrocyclization. Then and there your stereochemistry is decided for these two hydrogen. Let's say it is trans like this. Okay, let's say it is trans because it is conrotatory. Okay, this electrocyclization, it is only 4n pi electron system that you see, right? Okay, now the silicon which is present, there is a positive charge on this carbon. Since the bond has rotated on this carbon, there is a positive charge. So you know that the beta silyl cations are stable. The beta silyl cations are stable, and that is why the carbocation forms on this carbon. Similarly, after this reaction, silicon is going to be lost, because usually what happens is in the Nazarov cyclization, it is FeCl2 like this, one of the Cl minus leaves, and yes, always the Lewis acid you have to write. It is pulling out electron density from oxygen, which drives the reaction. Cl minus is going to attack over silicon. This is how the bond moves. And guys, further see, okay, there is a single bond over here, right? Yes, and after this reaction you are able to see that there is a double bond very well, but there is new double bond over here like this. And after aqueous workup and tautomerism, you get back from the enol, you get back the ketone, and this double bond is formed on this side, right? Which actually makes sense, because now these two protons are free, and you can actually see the stereochemistry of these of the Nazarov cyclization. So it is a trans 4n pi electron cyclization, which is going to be conrotatory. Okay, if you want, you can check out the Nazarov cyclization video also. Moving on to question number 18. Now there was a question like this, in which you have the enone system. This enone system further had the pi, right? This molecule is a very important one, because as soon as you see that there is a leaving group which is close to a pi bond, and as soon as you see that there is palladium, you are going to think of the pi allyl cation which is going to form. Always good leaving group and palladium which is like this. Okay, this orientation pi allyl cation most probably seen in the Suji-Trost reaction most of the times. Okay, so as soon as the palladium coordinates to this alkene, the leaving group is pushed off. Okay, and then you get this cation. This is a cation. Okay, only 2 electron, 3 center 2 electron bond like that, but yes, it is a pi allyl cation. Now what happens is silicon, once again silicon silicon stabilizes the uh, beta carbocation, so it is going to be eliminating like this and you get a negative charge over here. Okay, now this negative charge is going to work as a nucleophile. It is going to attack on the carbon, give you the enone system in this manner, and further cyclization is going to happen. So O minus which has formed, the bond moves up, the enolate attacks on one of these carbons. It is the same thing whichever it attacks on. So it attacks on one of these carbon and the bond is shifted, the double bond is shifted onto the terminus. So you get the exo double bond in this product. So this is your final product to this question which was asked, a very important one, and the formation of the pi allyl cation is selective. Okay, so you just have to see this and understand that there is a pi allyl cation which is forming. Okay, further question number 19, you have another ester molecule. Now look at the stereochemistry of this ester. Looks like that this is a 7-membered ring, and if it is a 7-membered ring, once again you have a carbon which is below the plane. So rather, if you write it like this, then also it is correct. It is again a direct question from Claydon solution manuals. Okay, and yes, what do you see? Once again you have a pi bond close to a leaving group which could be the oxygen of the ester. So that once again is a leaving group, and if you see that palladium is given in your question, you are going to understand that palladium attaches from below the plane, because yes, the stereochemistry is very important because this question was on stereo, right? So the ester is given above, hence the palladium is going to coordinate from below the plane. Okay, so if the palladium coordinates below, the leaving group is going to leave, you form a pi allyl cation like this, and one of your malonate ester, this was the malonate ester which was given, the anion is going to attack on this carbon from top of the plane because the palladium what was attached below, so it is once again anti-addition. So it is anti-addition, but the product that you are getting is finally syn, matlab ki anti with respect to palladium but syn with respect to your ester. So overall, if we are talking about this reaction, it is retention. Alright, overall if we are talking about this reaction, it is retention. If it is retention, which means that it is syn addition. Is it giving you a pure enantiomer or a racemic mixture? Ye dekho. So you have the possible attack on this side as well as you have the possible attack on this side as well. Both of the products are going to give you syn only but racemic mixture. Both of the enantiomers are going to be formed. So this is our Suji-Trost reaction once again, and it is going to give you a retention of the molecule, retention of stereochemistry, syn and racemic mixture. Alright, next question is very simple. So a reaction of ferrocene was given with concentrated H2SO4. There were very many reaction, guys, very many products options. That is, at one time the proton what was attached on the CP ring, then on the iron, then two of them were attached and so on. So basically it's just a simple reaction. That is, if you have an 18 electron species, you know that the iron is enough electron rich to attack on this proton directly. Alright, and then there is a positive charge on the complex for sure. Okay, which means that iron has gone from +2 to +3 oxidation state like this, but after that Yes, after that, if you count the electrons, there are still 18 electrons. Okay, so your product is going to be like this, still an 18 electron complex. Okay, still a stable complex. Then we have question number 21. Another very important question, guys. So, what do you do in this question? What is tetragonal butterfly and so on structure? So, in this case, from the 18 electron rule, you have to find out the metal-metal bonds first. You have to find out the metal-metal bond. Let me tell you. So for iron, you have so if you just do the total valence electron count, you can do it very simply. You have to find out the total valence electron. Metal-metal bonds are calculated this way: 18 into 4, because there are 4 ions, minus the total valence electrons, divide by 2. That gives you 5 metal-metal bonds. Now in all of the geometries which were mentioned, one of the geometry was tetrahedral. So you have how many bonds in tetrahedral? 1. Let's say this is a metal. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. You have 6 metal-metal bond in the tetrahedral. Then you have butterfly structure. So for the 4 metals, you can also get butterfly structure 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So it is going to be a bent structure like this. That is why it is called the butterfly structure. Similarly, if you have octahedral, alright, so it is octahedral in this manner: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So you require 12 metal-metal bonds for octahedral, and for trigonal bipyramidal you require 9 bonds. So your answer is only butterfly. It is a very very simple question to answer. Then moving onwards, guys, question number 22. You had a enone system over here, and this reaction is also very simple. First of all, you might get confused. You are having TBS OTF. What is this? TBS OTF is your tertiary butyl dimethyl silyl, and OTF is a good leaving group. You know it is a sulfonate group, right? So we are just concerned with the TBS right now. So you know that the oxygen is going to attack the silicon, but you don't have a base. Either there is deprotonation or something like that. No, here it is a direct attack from the phosphine. First the phosphine is attacking, then you are getting the enolate like intermediate, and then you form the O minus. So there is no base to take away the other proton, not happening. Right, so this is what happens, O minus, and this is where the phosphine has connected. So it is going to be OSIME2 tertiary butyl group, TBMS group, TBS group. Okay, further you have, now in the next step you have butyl lithium, which means that this proton close to phosphorus, because phosphorus has already got a positive charge, it is going to be the acidic proton. That gives you something like this, PPH3. And is that a ylide? Exactly, that is an ylide. And if you make the ylide attack over this R group, butanol, it is simple aldehyde, that gives you a E alkene. That gives you an E alkene like this. So for example, it is your hydrogen and the R group like this. Now further, TBAF, that is tetrabutyl ammonium fluoride, which is a fluoride source. Fluorides and oxides are hard bases, also the hydroxide. So if that happens, you are going to generate a negative charge on the oxygen. If there is a negative charge on the oxygen, it is going to go back, and after the aqueous workup, it is going to take up a proton from here or from the aqueous medium. Finally your product is going to be like this. So pH and a hydrogen, and let's say one more hydrogen. So this is your final product, alpha beta unsaturated ketone system. And yes, I have throughout missed these two methyl groups. If they are going to be there, okay, they are exactly where they were. Okay, so this is your correct answer. Now moving onwards, bond length of carbon-carbon adjacent bond in benzene. So guys, benzene is very easy to write. But what is the bond order of adjacent carbon-carbon? They are not 2, they are not 1. It is 1.5, because when you draw the canonical structure of benzene, you see that the double bonds are equally on both the carbons, so it is 1.5 bond order. Alright, a very simple question once again. Now, order of pKa. pKa order is inversely proportional to acidity, because you know it is negative logarithm of Ka. Now guys, what do you see? You have a proton like this. On removing the proton, let's say on removing the protons in all these cases, you have negative charges over here. Now the question is maximum acidity. Maximum acidity is for option number B, and minimum acidity is for option number A. Why is that so? Let's understand. So maximum acidity is for option number B, hence the minimum pKa value. Minimum acidity for option number A, and hence the maximum pKa value. Then we go with the C. A, C and B is your correct answer for the order of pKa. Why does that happen? Why is option number A having the minimum acidity value? That is because even if you are having the negative charge on option number C, this is also going to become anti-aromatic. B also becomes aromatic. B becomes aromatic. A and C become anti-aromatic. But the thing is that C can become non-planar at least. It can at least become non-planar to deviate from the anti-aromaticity. A cannot do that, right? So hence it is very reluctant to lose this proton. Minimum acidity and hence maximum pKa, then goes C and then B. So this is our correct order. Alright, moving onward, stability of carbocation. Very simple guys, because here it is your allyl carbocation having resonance like this, maximum stability, and only two hyperconjugation effects over here. Okay, stable. And vinyl carbocation. Vinyl carbocation is positive charge on the sp2 carbon, so hence it is going to be least stable. So stability is A, B and C. Goes like this. Yes. 26. What is the property of chemisorption? So guys, chemisorption is very this was a very simple question which I just to remember actually, because alright, because we just have to remember the fact. So chemisorption is not a multi-layer absorption, it is only a monolayer. Why is it a monolayer? And it is not reversible, it is irreversible in nature, or let's say it takes more time to be reversed. Why? Because it occurs due to bond formation. So there are chemical bonds which are formed. It is not like the van der Waals attraction in the physis option. So your answer is option number C or D, whichever, which has the occurs due to bond formation. Don't remember the exact order of the answer. So in the next 27th question, we have in the C13 proton NMR spectrum, the highest value for aldehyde. Highest value, I think it was 218 or 220, something like that. This was our value, right? 218 or 220, something. I don't exactly remember. But yes, so this highest value is going to be for camphor, because you have the aldehydic group or you have the ketonic group over here. Right, so in your C13 NMR spectroscopy, the ester, acids, all of these are having a less value as compared to the aldehyde or ketone. Okay, then we move onwards to question number 28. Now in Ag plus ClO4 minus, it is soluble in benzene. Why is it soluble in benzene? The reason is a little bit different from Alright, just a second. Yes, so the reason in this case is that, guys, there was a option PHAG formation of PHAG. Why is this wrong? Because in this case, the benzene ring, if you are forming PHAG, the benzene ring has to be deprotonated like this, and then only it can form Ag plus. So this is not happening, right? Because the ClO4 minus is not a very strong base, okay, because it's actually a weakest base. or a weak base. Okay, so it is not going to deprotonate benzene. Benzene behaves as a soft base. Soft base matlab benzene behaves as a pi electron donor to the Ag plus. This is how it is solvated in benzene, right? So hence you are having that this option is correct, not the pH Ag1. Alright, then you have decarboxylation. So once again guys, decarboxylation of these system is going to give you this order. Very simple. It has already been asked in the previous year questions. So what is it like? If you are doing the decarboxylation of pyridine system, it is going to be the most stable one, because after decarboxylation or removal of the CO2 group, you get a negative charge over here. Let's write all the negative charges, and then you understand that which is the most stable conjugate base. Alright, most stable conjugate base like this. So the most stable conjugate base forms in B because of the minus I effect, then A. Alright, so decarboxylation happens in B, then A, and then finally C. Because in the C you have all this third position in indole is already electron rich, so you don't have it in option number C. This is what you get. Alright, then moving on to question number 30. So I have taken up this question in the presence of camphor sulfonic acid. It is an acid. Okay, and in the presence of acid, what happens is just the formation of iminium ion. As soon as you see formaldehyde and nitrogen, you first form the iminium ion without any second thought. Okay, if you have done this, then you see the possibility of 3,3 sigma tropic rearrangement. See, we have done these type of question in the previous years. PYQs are having these questions. Okay, 3,3 sigma tropic rearrangement like this, and further you see that it is an enol system. If it is an enol system, it is going to give you the attack like this, and this is your 5-membered ring that forms. Further the ketone is back. Okay, so this is your Mannich reaction. Mannich reaction, first of all the iminium ion formation. We had a question like this guys. Then the 3,3 sigma tropic reaction, Aza-Cope reaction basically. Okay, and then third one is your Mannich reaction, this one. The next question, that what the question was, I guess, the position of bromine. Where is the bromine in both of these stable conformers? So if you write the stable conformers of both of these, you will see that bromine is there in the axial and the equatorial position in both of these cases. Why so? Because if you understand and if you have solved the previous year question, there was a question in which was having the bromine methyl interaction, methyl interaction, and methyl hydrogen interaction like this. So energies were given, and somehow you remember, or let's say somehow you are able to understand that methyl interaction, which actually forms in this conformer. If you had this conformer like this, the methyl interaction is going to be much greater in energy as compared to the hydrogen and bromine interaction. So hence this is a more stable conformer. Similarly, in the other one you have all of them equatorial very well. So here the Br is equatorial and axial. This is how it is going to be. Question number 32. Now in this complex that you see, rhodium, hydrogen, you can see this one thing very clearly, that even if you get confused that this is your alkyne bond, let's say for example you have a triple bond like this. If it was given R on both of these sides, then you would understand that this rhodium is actually connected like this, but such thing was not given. Very clearly it was given that your alkyne is having a negative charge. It is a 1 electron donor from this side. So if it is so, if that is the case, geometrical isomers are asked. So you have facial and meridional possibility. If you are doing the facial and meridional possibility, then you see that there are 3 phosphines. Let's keep all of these phosphines on such a position that it can form a face like this. The other carbon, or let's say the alkyne groups, could be connected like this, and this is your hydrogen. One of the possibility, even if you interchange these position, In both of these cases, your alkyne system remains cis to each other. Hence, is only one possibility for the facial isomer. If you are drawing the meridional isomer like this, in which you don't have a face formed, then what happens is either you can keep both of these alkyne groups on the same side, or basically cis, and you can also keep both of these onto the transposition like this. Alright, on the transposition, or let's say hydrogen is like this. So meridional, cis and trans is possible, facial only one is possible, right? So we have three possibilities. Similarly, in the other question, that is question number 33 over here, in the question number 33 over here, what do we have is I2 is brown in ethanol and acetone, right? So why is that so? Iodine is brown in ethanol and acetone, right? So we have the charge transfer complexes over here basically. So only, there were two options actually, yes. One of them was it is going to form a charge transfer complex. Yes, we have done that before a lot of times. The original color of iodine in the solid state, violet color solid crystals, but in the aqueous phase it becomes brown. Okay, in ethanol and acetone specifically. Alright, so that is because of the charge transfer complex forming like this. So what are the orbitals involved? The non-bonding orbitals of the ketone or the ethanol, which is containing the lone pair, to the sigma star of the iodine. So the low laying, because if you draw the molecular orbital diagram of iodine, you will see that only the only the pi till the pi star it is completely occupied, and only sigma star is empty like this. So this is what you see. So hence only the sigma star is empty, so the interaction with the low lying sigma orbital is possible. Similarly, in oxymyoglobin, this was a very good question, guys. Molecular orbitals of iron and O2 which are involved once again. So in the myoglobin or in hemoglobin, whatever you see is you have iron in this manner. Okay, iron is already penta coordinated, guys. So iron, if it is already penta coordinated, looks like a square pyramidal structure. If you see the square pyramidal splitting of iron, you would see that the dz square is available. Alright, or let's say you have nitrogen from the histidine. Alright, so only one of the site is vacant, and this forms a superoxide basically. So oxygen is having electron, the home, or let's say the LUMO is going to be pi star for oxygen. Just draw the molecular orbital diagram, you will know that pi star can accept the electron from the dz square because it is an axial overlap, right? So from the axis it is going to overlap with the oxygen, hence it is dz square or dxy, right? So dxy is completely wrong because that is in between the axis, so it is dz square. Only one option was given, this is correct. Now ionization energy, what is the correct statement for the ionization energy? So in all of the options, I just remember the correct ones. For nitrogen, it is greater than oxygen. We have done this several times because nitrogen has 2p3 half filled, oxygen has 2p4. One electron repulsion gives you less ionization energy. Similarly, for gallium, it is less than selenium for the same reason. Alright, because gallium is going to have that one electron extra than selenium. Alright, so easy to remove. Now 36 number question, correct statement for group 15 is that, now guys, you have AsCl3, that is your arsenic trichloride. So you know that the p block elements, especially the group 15, have this possibility or forming the hypervalent ions. Yes, it has the possibility for forming the hypervalent ion that most of the time give us the superacid. Yes, so AsCl3 taking away a Cl minus to form this anionic complex is correct. And antimony pentafluoride, once again we have done this several times in our practice session, several times, that it is going to give you a superacid like this. So H2F positive is going to form, Right, guys? So the last question over here is XeF6 and SiO2. Now, answering this question was a pure guess, but it is a correct guess because see, quartz or silica both have the same formula SiO2. If they are reacting with XeF6 and also only limited amount it was mentioned, right? So limited amount matlab ki if it is just inserting one oxygen and removing two fluorines, it is first of all going to form XeOF4. This is the first step of XeF6 hydrolysis or substitution. Then once again it reacts with excess of oxygen containing XeO3, which is basically going to give you more oxygens in the system. So it is combination of this is going to give you XeO2F2, right? Just inserting more oxygen and removing the fluorine like this. So this were all of the questions, and now guys, time for students review, that what are and how are the students reviewing. Okay, just a minute. Now, for the aptitude part, it required more time for all of the students. So the students review help us in understanding that what could be your predicted, what could be your cutoff. So the aptitude was a little bit difficult and more time taking actually. All right, so for the students that we usually do, we do the section C first and then we go for B and then we go for A for attempting maximum marks. But this time section A was difficult in required more time than 30 minutes or 20 minutes. It must 40 minutes must be given to your aptitude. All right, then time management issue. So students have faced the time management issues because the questions, if you have practiced a lot, then you can do these questions directly. Otherwise, even the organic question, they were simple and direct, but if you have not done the practice, it will take you time to solve these questions. Okay, so there was time management issue, which actually is always there with this exam. Or abhi to this exam has happened once in a year, so that is also a problem for you to be habituated with the time management. Again, difficult or different inorganic questions which we were not expecting much. I don't remember many inorganic questions, but if I get somewhere, I will definitely discuss those also. Also, organic and physical was comparatively easier. So yes, a lot of students who have gone for organic and inorganic, okay, they found inorganic difficult. For those who have done physical and inorganic, they have found again inorganic difficult. So one portion they were able to do very easily, the other portion was difficult, and that is why scoring or attempting questions became tough. And that has also happened with the aptitude. So there were also direct questions from inorganic and physical. So this leads us to understand that what we can say about the cutoff is that, guys, everyone I think has faced equal difficulty as compared to all of these students. So cutoff ke liye I can say that it is going to be around, cannot directly predict because the Tamil Nadu exam is still left. Okay, so I think it should be around 110 for the JRF, not more or less. I just feel that, having an intuition, but let's see. All right, completely based on intuition. So, what are the future predictions for your upcoming June 2021 examination? So basically, guys, I am able to get an idea about what topics which are not asked this time but have been very popularly asked in all the times. Those topics I give more importance from now onwards. For example, the isolobal analogy, the homogeneous catalysis. We were expecting a lot of questions from the Wilkinson's catalyst, the Crabtree catalyst, and so on, the Monsanto acetic acid process, but maybe they have become too mainstream. Okay, so homogeneous catalysis, reactive intermediates के अंदर you can still have nitrines and benzynes. Benzyne are also asked a lot of time, and both of them are not asked this time. Then a lot of name reactions, so we missed out, we did not see a lot of name reactions in this exam, maybe related to pericyclic reactions. All right, most of the name reactions, Nazarov and 3,3 sigma tropic, most of them were related to pericyclic only, but separately not many name reactions. Then asymmetric synthesis, the important ones, the Sharpless epoxidation, dihydroxylation, Noyori reduction, CBS reduction, the chiral auxiliary, we did not see much of that, so we can expect that in the June 2021 examination. Now, in the inorganic complex hydrolysis and substitution reaction based on the trans effect. So, we saw electron transfer reactions, redox reaction this time, but not much of the substitution reaction, which we can expect next time. Also, the polydispersity index, which I was expecting a question. Enzyme kinetics, I don't remember much that if we have got this, but I think he did not get a question from this. We'll have to recheck once. Then photochemistry was not much asked, very few question. And then pericyclic May-in reaction and the stereochemistry of the Diels-Alder reaction. Okay, so yes, actually talking about the Diels-Alder, you did get a question, right? Cycloaddition and cycloreversions, but I don't exactly remember what was the question. The removal of CO2, right? You had one more question like that, but we'll see. All right, so stereochemistry may you have the R and S configuration. We missed out on that, we did not have it, and the energy calculations also. Okay, you got conformational analysis, you got the topicity question. Okay, and then main group elements me guys, we were expecting boranes, phosphazines, oxyacids and a lot of stuff like that, but we got only majorly your reactions this time. Okay, so there are these little things which you can also analyze by yourself, that which thing is not asked, which is very popularly asked in the previous year questions. The Davies Green Mingo's rule is once again important. Phosphine and carbonyl complexes, I think that these are very important for the organometallics, the IR frequency, the reactivity and so on. Conductance measurement in physical and other palladium catalyzed reactions. So most of the palladium, only 2 or 3 were there, I guess, and they were focused on the Suji-Trost reaction, the pi-allyl cation formation, right? And we have a lot of other palladium catalyzed reactions which were not asked. So these are some only few of these important topics which I can gather right now, but as soon as the paper comes out we will again do the analysis and understand much better. So yes, let's come on to the expectation for the Tamil Nadu paper. So guys, I expect that since we have already seen this scenario that once there was the Assam paper which was repeated because of a problem once again. So the same thing is happening with Tamil Nadu paper also. I think that similar topics will be asked. So if you are considering this paper right now and preparing for similar topics, then it would be really good for all of the Tamil Nadu students, because I think that similar topics will be asked. Okay, and focus on practicing more aptitude and more inorganic so that you can score well. Third thing is try out more question practice for the third subject. Let's say if you are preparing for the inorganic and organic, then try out questions for physical as well. Okay, don't skip them because now the questions are limited, you need more time. All right, along with that you have the this inorganic and physical students, you must try out organic as well. Okay, so there are some topics which are doable like pericyclic, which are always asked. Okay, so just do that. Now guys, last point, what can we learn from the CSIR NET 2020 exam? That aptitude needs more attention. This we already learned with all the exam. All the after giving all the exam, we think like that only, that next time we are going to do more aptitude. But when this situation arises, that always keep at least 40 minutes for aptitude. This is what I have already told you several times. Keep some time for aptitude, 40 minutes. Okay, not 30 minutes and 20 minutes are not enough. As you can see, this time it was a little bit difficult. Okay, that also only don't depend on two major subject. Try out the question from the third one also. So in 120 questions that you are having right now, look for scoring topics. Now we have to be even more precisely studying For two major subjects, you have to know every important topic in detail. You can't skip the important topic, every major topic in detail. And about the third subject, for example physical or inorganic or organic, look for scoring topics. Okay. And yes, for the time management, look for the clock in the opposite way. That is, you can't actually look at 3 hours in the forward direction, because the clock is opposite. It is starting from 180 minutes. So 180 to 120 is 1 hour, 120 to 60 is 1 hour, 60 to 0 minutes is 1 hour. So try to figure out these 3 hours in this manner, so that you don't get confused by the clock. That is also very very important. So actually minus your time that you have consumed. Look at the clock in this manner: minus 30 minutes, minus 60 minutes, and so on. Okay, so that is the thing that I want to tell all of you. And yes, here we end today. And I hope that this discussion was a little bit fruitful for all of you. If you have any more questions coming up in your mind, if you are able to recall, then you can message me on Telegram as well. I will post the link of the Telegram channel in the description. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and please share this with your friends if you think that it is worth it. Thank you so much once again. See you in another video.